Hi, kindergarten friends. It's Ms. Stevenson again, and I'm going to show you another art activity that you may try this week. This week, we're going to be creating a picture using shapes. Friends in my class have been learning a lot and talking a lot about different kinds of shapes that we see in the world. And some of us started to create art last week using shapes, and I thought that it would be something that everyone might like to try. So before we start the art activity, I wanted to talk to you about a word that my friends learned this week, and the word is unique. That is maybe a word that you've never heard before, but what the word means is that when something is unique, it means there's nothing else like it in the world. There's only one like it in the whole world. And art is like that. Art is unique. When someone creates art, their artwork does not look like anyone else's artwork in the whole world. And that is what makes art so special. And that is what makes creating art so special. When someone creates art, they are an artist. And their art can look any way that they want it to look. So when I create art, I make it so that I'm happy with it, because I'm the artist and I'm the one who has to be happy with how my work looks. It's always important to try your best, but we don't need to compare our work to anyone else's, because someone else's work is going to be completely different from our work, and everyone's work is beautiful. So that is something that I wanted to share before we started creating today. And I have a few examples to show you from a book. This is one of my favorite books. It is called The Art Book for Children. And this book talks a little bit about different famous artists there have been in the world. Some of these artists lived a long time ago, and some of these artists may still be living now. But the examples of work in the book show how all work is unique. Now, this is a painting by an artist named Jean Miro. And Jean Miro's work is very unique. This piece of art is called Woman, Bird by the Moonlight. Now, when you look at this, I see a moon. There's a shape. I see a star. There's another shape. And I see other shapes that don't really look like a bird or a woman, like the title says. This kind of looks like a person down here. I see a body that looks a little bit like a triangle. I see circles and lines. And I see two circles here and a line that kind of look like a face, someone looking sideways like that. So that's what I see when I look at this, but maybe that's not what the artist was thinking when they made the art. We don't know. He's leaving it up to our imagination. We can see whatever we want to see in this painting. And over here, I see another shape. It looks like an oval. It's a very, very thin black line. And again, two circles and a line that looks like a smile. So maybe this is another person turning their head to the side. I don't know. But I think that his work is very magical because it makes me think and imagine all different kinds of things. Here is another very famous artist. This artist is named Pablo Picasso. And Picasso liked to use shapes for all of his work. We see many, many shapes in this painting. I see triangle shapes over here. I see oval shapes for the eyes. I see lots of colorful lines. I see triangle shapes up here. This looks like maybe it's a flower. This painting kind of looks like someone is crying. That's what it looks like to me. It looks like they're holding a tissue up to their face and they've got a teardrop here. I know we've been talking a lot about feelings lately. And even though Pablo Picasso could draw people really, really, really realistically, he could draw people that looked like real people. He chose to paint like this because he thought this was more interesting to make up how people look in his own brain. And he used lots. I see triangle shapes over here. I see rectangles behind on the wall. Lots of shapes used in this picture. Here's another painting. This is by an artist named Henry Rousseau. And this is called The Monkeys. I don't know if you can see the monkeys hiding in that picture. And I like this picture because this artist chose to use many, many, many different colors of green overlapping so that it looks like a real jungle. And he used lots of shapes in this painting too. We see long skinny lines. We see wider leaves that look like rectangles. We see all different kinds of shapes and sizes of leaves and lots of colors. And here is another famous artist named Vincent van Gogh. And he was famous partly for his sunflower paintings. This is one of his sunflower paintings. And you probably right away notice circles. Some of the circles are looking at us straight on, and some of them are turned to the side. We just see a half circle down here. And in this painting, he used lots of different colors of yellow. And I see other shapes here. I see lots of triangle shapes. Lots of long, skinny triangles that make the petals of the flowers. And Vincent van Gogh is another artist who could draw things really, really realistically that looked exactly like what he was painting. But he chose to paint his flowers a little bit differently because that's how his brain and his imagination saw it. So none of this work in this book looks exactly the same. All of these artists paint and draw in their own unique way. And all of this work is beautiful, in my opinion. And part of the reason that it's beautiful to me is because it doesn't look like anything else I've seen before. It's different. So I want us to think about that when we are creating our own work, not just today, but always. Our work never needs to look like anyone else's work because as people, we're not the same as anyone else. So our work is going to be different as well. Okay? Hopefully everyone understands all that. So we'll talk about that again as the year goes on, but it's something that I want you to start thinking about now. Now, today I thought about creating my own forest using a piece of white paper, and I've got some markers here. I'm going to do my shapes in two different ways because some of you have paper and markers at home and some of you have colored paper and scissors at home. So I wanted to show you both ways. And if you have all of these materials at home, you can do it the same way that I'm doing it. You can combine all the materials together. So for my picture, I'm going to make a forest. But like I said before, just because I'm doing a forest doesn't mean you have to create a forest. You can do anything you want. So I'm going to draw my line where I want my ground to be, and I'm going to color the whole bottom of the page green. Because when I look outside and I look around at the world, the ground and the sky way off in the distance touch. The ground and the sky meet. So I'm going to color my ground. I'm choosing to color my ground green. You might make a different choice if you're making a forest. And I'm going to color my sky blue, because in my picture, it's a bright sunny day. All right. There. Now, I'm going to color some trees on top. And maybe you will choose to draw your trees first and your grass and your sky around your trees. You can do it that way, or you can draw your trees on top. If you're doing it this way, just make sure that you are using darker colors to cover the blue and the green. Now, the first shape I want to draw on my picture is going to be a rectangle. And maybe some of you will know what my plan for this rectangle. I said I was making a forest. So what do we predict these rectangles might be? I wonder. I'm going to make this trunk a little lower. These rectangles are tree trunks. And I'm going to do another one over here. There we go. Now, these don't look exactly like trees to me yet. I need to add the tops of the trees. So I am going to, whoops, I don't want to use brown. I want to use purple. I'm going to create circles. Here's my next shape. Nice big circles. Now, parents at home, it is very, very important to remember that your child should be doing as much of the work on their own as they can. It's okay to help your child, but the goal is for them to be doing as much as they can. And one way that you can help them, if they need help, if they're asking for help, is you can ask them what shapes they would like on their page, and you can guide their hand around. That means their hand is on the writing tool and your hand could be on top of their hand, and you could be guiding their hand to make the shape that they choose. Or you could do dotted lines and have them trace over the line. But it's important to ask them what shape they choose for their picture before you start. So if your child wants a triangle shape, help them make a triangle shape. If they want an oval shape, you could help them make an oval shape. Now I'll show you what I mean by dotted lines. If your child asks you for a triangle, you can make dotted lines like this. I don't know if you can see them. I'll do them with black. Maybe you'll be able to see them better. Dotted lines. And for children that were in school last year, they'll remember this technique because many of the teachers have used this with the students already and they're familiar with it. And then they can take the marker and trace over the lines. If your child is choosing to do the shapes all on their own and they make a mistake and it does not look like a perfect triangle, as long as they're happy with it, it's perfect. We're not looking for perfection. No art is perfect. But it's really important that the students are doing as much as they can on their own, because that is how we learn. There we go. There's a triangle. And I would like my last shape to be an oval. So I'm going to draw the dotted lines like that. And then trace over my dotted lines. And I can color it in. Now in kindergarten, because we have so many different students and personalities, not even just in kindergarten, all the way through, we have some students that are really, really, really interested in art and some students that are not. So some students will be happy and engaged to color their picture all solid colors and do many, many shapes and many, many details in their picture. And there will be other students who are happy with just a couple of shapes or a couple of details in their picture. And it is always something that they can go back to later. You can set it aside. Maybe they want to work at it 10 minutes here, take a break, and then get it back out again later. Or maybe they will be happy with just, for example, doing 1 or 2 trees on their page. And that's fine. Not all students are going to color the whole page the way that I did. We all have different interests, and some students are really, really keen to make things like this, and other students are happier doing other activities, and that's okay. But the point is that we try to do a little bit. Now, I'm also going to add shapes using colored paper. Now, this is a way that parents can help with the cutting steps. So if you want to cut shapes out of colored paper, if you have this at home, you can ask your child what shapes they want on the colored paper, and you can help them to draw their shapes. You can draw the dotted lines if they ask for an oval or a triangle. You can draw the dotted lines for them, and then they can trace them. Maybe they need you to just do it for them. That's okay if that's what they need. Or you could do hand over hand, put your hand on top of theirs and guide their hand while they make the shape. But again, it's important for them to choose what shapes that go on the page. It's a really, really good idea to draw the shapes as close to the edge of the paper as you can. That will help them when they cut. It's a lot easier to get to the shape if it's close to the edge rather than in the center of the paper. That's a lot more cutting. And it also saves paper so that you don't have as much waste. Okay. Now at school, when we're cutting many different shapes out of a piece of paper, I will help my students out by cutting out around the shape so that they don't have as much paper to deal with. It's a lot easier to cut a shape when it's just got a little bit of paper around it when we're starting to learn. So I'm cutting around the shape, and you can do this for your child at home. This is one way that you can help. Cut around the shape, and then they have less paper to deal with around the shape. And then it might be easier for them to manage. Now, it's when you're cutting, especially a circle, it's easier to hold your scissors in one spot and turn the paper with your other hand. It takes practice. That makes cutting a lot easier. Here's the oval. And don't forget, friends, you need to be sitting in a chair when you're using scissors. No standing, no walking around with the scissors in your hand. So here's my oval, and I'm cutting. I'm keeping my scissors in one spot, and I'm moving the paper around with this hand. I'm turning it as I go. There. Okay. Now, I have triangles and rectangles for my paper tree trunks drawn on this paper, and I drew them right to the edge of the paper. And so all I need to do when I cut is cut right off the edge, and then I can go on the other side and cut that edge. Even with a rectangle, you can cut right off the edge. You can clean up the paper later, do the top, like that. And it's easier to deal with the straight lines when they're right at the edge of the paper. They're right there for the student to start cutting. Okay. And let's see what other shapes I want here. I want a red tree, another oval, and an orange tree. If when we do these videos, when I do these videos with art, if you want to pause the video as you do each step and follow along with me as I show you, that's fine. Or you can watch the whole video and then go back and start after you've seen the whole thing. Now I have my glue stick and my first shape. I'm going to put some trees in the front of the picture, maybe in the middle of the picture. So I'm going to put my oval on here. And my tree trunk on the top. Like that. And maybe I'll do a little bush on the ground. I have a circle. I'm going to cut the circle in half. I want it to look like a bush sitting here on the ground next to my tree. And I think I'd like a red bush too, so I'm going to cut this oval in half. Maybe it looks like leaves that have fallen out of the tree and made a pile on the ground. Here's my next tree trunk. And this tree is just going to have a little circle on the top. See? So we are layering the trees on top of each other to make it look like a real forest. And something that you can do if you aren't interested in doing a forest, but you're not quite sure what kind of picture you want to create with shapes, something that you can do is go for a walk outside and try to spy different shapes that you see outside your house. You could go in your backyard and just look at all the different shapes in your backyard. Or you can sit in your house and look around your house and try to name the different shapes that you see. Right now, I can see my light in front of me. Looks like a circle. There's a picture on my wall that is a rectangle shape. What else do I see around me? This paper right here is a rectangle shape. So when you look at my roll of tape is a circle. You can just sit and look around the room and get some ideas from what is around you in your environment, and maybe that will inspire you to do a totally different kind of shape picture than what I'm doing right now. So here's another tree. And this one has a big tree trunk, a big triangle, like that. You can always go back as well. And when you have finished putting your shapes on the picture, you can go back and draw details if you want. You can draw birds in the trees, you can draw animals on the ground or people on the ground. You can draw branches on your trees with markers. I don't know where my brown marker went to right now, but you can draw branches on the trees if you want to with marker. You can add any kind of detail that you want to your picture when you're finished putting the shapes on. So I hope that this lesson has inspired you a little bit to get creative and create any kind of picture that you choose with shapes. You could even, if you don't want it to look like anything in particular, you could cut or draw a whole bunch of shapes and make a design or a pattern and see how many different shapes you could get into a different design with different colors. I hope you have a lot of fun with this activity, and we are all looking forward to seeing your beautiful work on Brightspace. Bye, everybody.